Welcome, everyone, and good evening or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. I think it's mostly good evening. I'm Rita Bacuzzi. I'm also known as Mama Rita Money, lovingly from my clients and friends. And you're with me today to share a time that is good. It's a good time to feel good about money. And I am super excited to have joining with me Maria Mastrodicasa today. And we'll meet her in just a moment. But I wanted to say first and foremost, thank you for being here. You could be anywhere. But I hope you're with me because you know what? We want to create change in the world. We want to see a fun, more fulfilling life, especially now during these times. And I think that that is completely possible. I think I'm seeing separated dynamics where some people are kind of here in this lower, oh, woe is me victim mentality. And some of it is based on real deal stuff that's going on. I know there's a lot of stuff, health issues, politics, you name it. There's so much going on. Just all that, just those couple things alone is enough to bring us down. So really, what I'm here to do is spread some light and love and stories maybe of resiliency, like today's, of hearing things like maybe we've heard things like you'll never amount to anything, or you'll never be able to do that. Or maybe it was we were telling ourselves that story right here in our minds, that we were never good enough, that we were never worthy. But I'm here to tell you today that we are, and we do it together. I totally believe it takes a village. And I'm here and glad to know that you're part of this village that makes a difference in the world just by showing up, by trying to find, and I'm going to say finding the pieces, the people, the thoughts to elevate us to another level. I call it leveling up, leveling unlimited possibilities. And it begins with hearing about them in the beginning. And so today, like I said, I have my beautiful friend, Maria Mastrodicasa, who wrote a book called, interestingly enough, You'll Never. And it's a journey in what's possible through self-advocacy. And I'm a strong believer in that because I think you've heard with my past guests, this seems to be a running theme. Your voice, the voice that you get out there, is yours. You are in charge. You take control. You're accountable. And some of us might not want to hear that, but the reality is that doesn't mean we're doing it alone. We're here to do it in community, together, sharing and caring so that we can be motivated. I know a lot of you have heard that story maybe about my brother who passed. And when he passed, he was only 27 and I was 21. And I just remember being at his funeral. And from that turning point, one of my friends calls it an inflection point, that point that changes everything. I remember thinking that I am going to live his legacy of love, positive influence, and inspiration, spreading that hope in the world that is that driver so that we can show up in the world and really find ways to feel good about ourselves, about our relationships, and of course about our money, and have lots of fun and do it together, like with my friends like Maria, who is an amazing, resilient woman. I'm going to share a little bit about Maria. And Maria is, there's so much about her, but I think the top points is what was exciting to me is she's a former Wall Street broker. She's an international speaker, an author, and self-advocacy coach. And her lifelong commitment is to helping all women feel safe and valued. I don't think that there's anything better that we could do and feel safe and valued. I think that's priceless. And she really helps women every day feeling empowered so that they can succeed. And so I'm definitely going to poke at the Wall Street part and learn about the good old boys club and how that worked. But also, we can go down this journey about money as a part of our everyday lives, and then other stuff in our lives happen. Friends come and go in our lives. People pass away. There are births. There's always going to be these ups and these downs. It's what we do with it in the in between, and how do we manage it together. So with that, Maria, really teaches us from bringing that impossible to possible and creating the life we want. Maria, I just want to say thank you so much for being here today. I'm super excited. I know that every time we get together, we have these really long, in-depth, profound talks around money, around relationships. So I couldn't do anything better than to share you with the world, or my world of people, because they need leaders like you to lead the way so that we can self-advocate. So welcome aboard, and thank you for
Thank you so much for having me. Yes, it's exciting to share our conversations with, your audience. So I'm very thrilled to be here and to meet all of them.
I appreciate it. So I wanted you, you have this amazing story. And like I said, it's a story of resiliency. It touches my heart because you went through many facets. And I'm just going to pull up your book because you know what? You shared all. You shared everything. And then my favorite part of your book, which was interesting because you know how you say, I'm going to get around to, and when I write a book, I am going to do this, was that you gave a summary and tips at the end so that there were learning lessons and takeaways, right? These, what I call golden nuggets. They're those priceless lessons, because we can go through things in our lives and never have learned a thing.
Yes.
And then repeat it. So correct. I love the fact that you made sure that, yes, you went through a lot of trials, but what was that main point that I'm going to say that inflection point, that change for you? So I'm going to ask a question that I just thought about. For you, what was your favorite chapter that you wrote about?
I think that's interesting that you ask that. A lot of them, of course, they're all part of me. The most exciting was the Wall Street years. The good, the bad, and the ugly was the most exciting. I think the biggest breakthrough I had was the marriage and divorce. It was the biggest breakthrough I had of real courage, real strength, almost, to break down, but I broke through. And so that was really impactful in my life to get past that.
I love that. Really, it is about the breakthrough, because I'm going to say there are moments that we do break down. I'm going to say, what was the driver for you when you were at these points of breakdown? How do you transition to that breakthrough? How did you personally do that?
In different stages, like we were talking about the Wall Street. That was different. This was really I've never been in a situation where I was attacked and almost everything would be taken from me and I could possibly be left with nothing and my children could be taken from me. So the loss, the fear comes in, the fear of loss, it could have been money, really wasn't a big deal for me, because you can make more money. But the fear to lose my children, the fear to lose, a home, not have a roof over my head, the threats that were made to me, that fear, and the fear of being in danger. So that's why for me, it is the most important thing, because we can be ourselves when we feel safe.
Yeah.
I could not be myself. I was in fight and flight mode. And so to get to that point, it really just became about the faith being stronger than my fear. And had I not had that faith, from a very young age, and just stayed in the word and just kept my mindset So when you talk about money and mindset, you talk about mindset. Your health is, for me, my health is my wealth. My mindset and keeping my, strength in God and my faith. So that's really what helped me push through. I didn't need anything to numb the pain. I just needed to push through. And had I not had that faith, I don't think I would have
I
gone.
love that. I had to share that nugget, and I'm going to share as we go through. I'll do my best to share the nuggets that I find, because, the breakthrough, the breakdowns is number one. Number two is faith stronger than fear. And I couldn't agree with you more, is having that faith. I'm going to say having that knowing in the unknown that everything is going to just work out all right. And that all things change for the good or, for the bad. But really we can control the way that all transpires. We do have that power. Actually, you called it the super advocacy. I'm going to call it this way: super advocacy superpower, right? Self-advocacy superpower.
Yes, it is our superpower. Yes. Yeah. I
Right.
feel like self-advocacy is our superpower, because even when you have people advocating for you, you still have to let them know what they are advocating for, because they don't always understand.
Right.
They don't understand your values.
I think what I've been hearing, including with what you've been saying from several women, the common thread throughout my shows is about this voice that we do have, and that, that we remember that we have our voice. Even in our preview, just beginning in the show, Madeline Albright talks about sometimes it takes time for us to build that voice, right? We just don't automatically have it. And I think that was a common thread throughout your story, is that you really went back and forth. So tell us a little bit maybe about your history and how you got to the point of where you are today.
Well, I realized in the writing of the book that I've been advocating for myself since I was in 3rd grade. Being told, you'll never amount to anything, because I had difficulty reading. I didn't know why. I got hit in the head by, a teacher because I couldn't read out loud to the class. I struggled. I didn't know why I was struggling. And, the same thing happened, in each grade that I moved, because no one addressed the issue. So it's like, if you have a sickness and no one's addressing the issue, it stays. And so I never knew until, years later, about 18 years old, when I got to New York, and then I got this position on Wall Street, a trainee position. And I walked in the room, and I was there 2 weeks, and I see where everybody's from. And I just called a friend and I said, I think I need a tutor. And I took the initiative. I realized that I was lucky to get in the door. I realized that there were people that, were highly educated. It's not like I wasn't smart. I just didn't have the education that they did. And so I seeked it out. And I was able to get help, found out I was dyslexic. I was like, oh my gosh, you mean I'm not an idiot and I can learn and I will amount to something? And from there, I just was full speed ahead. Took non-credit courses. I did whatever it took to educate myself to do this job that I found to be extremely exciting.
Right. Taking that step no matter what. If there is one thing that you would want our listeners today and our viewers today to hear about, what would that be? What would that one message be?
Well, I love what you had said, that it takes us time to get our voice, and the courage to speak it. So sometimes, like I was saying earlier, I'm evaluating. Is it me? What is it that I'm feeling? How do I express it? And sometimes I don't know how to express it, and it takes time. And I just realized in a situation that I got to speak it. I didn't realize it. So sometimes it does take that time. So, I do write those lessons in the book. Take some time for yourself, meditate, journal, Try to figure it out, because when you speak, self-advocacy isn't a force, a push. It's speaking your voice, and I say in grace, because people will hear you. You know, when you're demanding it, like hear me, like you're having a tantrum like a child, people tend to tune you out. So it's how you speak your voice, you know,
I
how
agree.
you speak up and speak out.
Yeah, I think, for the longest time, I definitely, I was one of those kids growing up, or at least, I say one of those kids. I'm sure there are others that, I would talk a lot in class. It was an outlet for me. We really didn't talk as much at home. So it was an area where I just kept on going, and I'm going to say created a habit of it into my early adulthood, to really learn that pausing, listening, and slowing down actually made me stronger, more resilient, gave me a chance to take a breath, right? Gave me a chance to breathe. I'm going to say, through COVID, I think a lot of the lessons that, you're talking about and your learning lessons, are really important points to what you're saying, is taking that pause and maybe slowing down, because maybe it's not about yelling and screaming and being heard to be the loudest person, but how could you be the most impactful in your message, and take time to think about what that is. Because I think that, and I know you've experienced this, we've experienced this together in groups, is sometimes when you pause and you listen, and then you allow yourself to really, I'm going to say marinate in it, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
The right words just automatically come, and then they come out, and it's almost as if you didn't really speak them. It feels almost supernatural. And then it has the most impact.
Yes.
It
Profound
lands
impact. Yes.
most profound impact. I love that. So you said that the hardest, I think, for you is the relationship piece, right?
Yes.
Speak a little bit about that, because I think in relationships, and I don't know if money was a factor in your relationship or control over that. Was that any part of it? Because I know a lot of times
There was control, and when I, originally before I got married, this person did not have much income.
Mhm.
And so I believed in him, and just how I created my career on Wall Street, I helped him create his career. And so we built, he went out and did the sales, but I just really connected him and, led the way in certain areas. And so I thought we were a team, and then it did get, controlling. So then you have this abundance, but it's being held by one person, and you want to, share it with the children, share it with this. And that wasn't the case. And then there was control in other areas. And that's not, for me, that's not a way to live. I mean, the whole point of having financial freedom is because it is free. It's freedom. Money is being abundant in money is a way to share it, to be generous, to help others in need. You have a family member who's sick or things like that. So I feel that, there's no reason to control it. What are you controlling? It's not ours anyway.
Right. I think it's better when there's a flow of it, right? That
Yes.
feels good. A restriction just kind of holds you tight, holds you bound. Controlling doesn't feel, it just, for me, it doesn't feel very good. And I think that, in any relationship, when there's this flow and this ease, it just, it makes life better. It makes it so that we talk about reciprocity, where there's this giving, and then as the giver, you receive joy by giving. The receiver enjoys by receiving the gift. And then it's just it's almost like a connectivity that continues. almost like an energetic current that kind of ends up flowing through you, right? So
Yes.
that you can enjoy it.
And I just want to say that that is very, very important for us as women to understand that you stop the flow if you're not a good receiver.
Yes.
So because I get, and you just expressed that you get so much joy from giving,
Mhm.
you rob someone of that joy if you don't receive well.
I
And we should
agree.
never do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
It took me a long time to learn that.
You know what? It took me a long time to learn that. I think I learned that in my early adulthood. I even remember my mom, she still just love her to death. And like she recently had a birthday and, we want to give her presents and all these things. And she's like, oh no, you know what? I don't need anything. I'm good. You don't need to give me. I'm okay with just being present. But I remember one time when she was like, no, I don't want any presents. And asked her, I said, what if I told you you're not allowed to give me a present? She's like, oh, but I'm your mom. I get to give it to you I'm like, so I just took a step back and I said, Mom, think about this. It makes you feel really good to give that gift to me. I said, but you're stopping me from receiving that gift of
Yeah.
giving,
Yeah.
that feeling. That's what you're stopping in other people. And when we realize that it's all good, a happy receiver really makes for an even happier person that's giving.
Yes.
And it should be that way in all aspects of our lives. And I think that when we're not on the receiving end, it really can take a toll on our health, right?
Yes.
Because again, there's this control factor. So there's this break off where we are controlling a situation. And I'm going to say, I think about this with relationships because I know that women, we love to be pampered. I get it. And guys,
Yeah.
they love to give too. But when you make it so lopsided, then it just shifts where now, and I get this a lot when I'm talking to, clients and it's husband and wives. And actually a lot of the times the husbands really want their wives to know what's going on financially. They don't want all the burden. Then there's the cases where the men are controlling it all. And then in the future, sometimes things just don't go right. And then what happens is women are finding themselves today. I even see this with really young couples, and just curious if you kind of has seen this or, in working with your self-advocacy where the women now, it's almost like the rug gets pulled out from under them, right? And the anger and the resentment gets transferred to the man. But however, what I want to point out is we as women have created that. We enabled some of that behavior, and not in all cases, but in a lot of cases, women just go, yep, I love to be pampered. He can take care of everything. And then one day, everything's going along and it's great. And then it's not. And then all of a sudden is the man's controlling the money and the women don't know what to do. They don't know where to turn, where to look. They don't have community. They have never had discussions.
And
And I
that's the thing is conversation. So I'm learning more and more about that is that, conversations, and people don't like to have conversations. It's uncomfortable, but those are things you have to have. You're going into a relationship. So if one person wants to have a child and the other one doesn't, that's a very important conversation. So it's who's going to take care of the money and having your own checkbook, because God forbid, which had happened to a friend of mine, she was engaged for 8 years, lived with the man, and he passed away. And so then what happens? And she has her own career, but that's still not the point. They bought a home together. So it's still things you need to talk about.
Yeah.
Open communication about, it's just a conversation about money. It's money.
Yeah. It's just a resource that's a part of our everyday lives. And I think for women, there might be self-worth or blaming issues going on because a lot of us, I'm curious, what was your experience growing up around money? Like what was the role model of your mom or your dad, or was it even a discussion
Well,
topic?
there was never a discussion about money. There was never you can't have this, or we weren't children who asked for things. It just, like, we had a pretty good life, and I just remember it getting difficult when my parents got divorced.
Okay.
And then my mother went back to work, and she worked for the Royal Bank of Canada in Manhattan. And, and then she got back on her feet. But for a short time, we were struggling, and I didn't like it. And even when she got back on her feet, it wasn't the lifestyle that I really enjoyed. What we eat, the clothes so that inspired me to go to Manhattan, to get a job, and to pursue, and to have my own income. It was really important. And even today, it's an independence that comes with, financial freedom.
Yeah. I look at it as you're speaking is, I think about this, and even with my own son, when he got married a year ago, is you're two individuals
Yes.
coming together for one union. You don't become one individual. You just don't. So your accounts shouldn't become that way either. There should be yours. It's that yours, yours, mine, and ours, right?
Yes.
So this way things are blended, and it makes it easier to actually even see, because I know that when we have our own accounts and things that we're doing, putting that money that's allocated that we've worked for, or maybe if you're a single mom at home, discussing what that would be, right? Or a mom that's working, or not working, I should say, what the value is on that. I don't know if you've ever seen these cartoons where they talk about a mom that, makes no salary, but yet she's a cab driver, she's a cook.
Everything. We're everything.
Everything. And if you had to spend the money on all that, it would be well over six figures.
Well, they do. If, God forbid, the wife passes away, if you had to pay someone to do all of those jobs, absolutely. Cooking 5-6 days a week, the whole thing, the groceries. I mean, I've been there. I've done it all, and then I've had people who did it all for me. So I kind of like doing it. I got great satisfaction out of it. But yes, there is value there. But I love what you're saying is, because I'm a whole person, and I have my personality. That's what I bring to the table, and they have their personality. You both have your account, and then, you have this, my friend calls it the bubble. And then you have this bubble, this, account together, and this union that you are one together.
Mm-hmm.
You're whole, but then you come together as one, and then you can have an account like that as well. But it has to be a discussion.
It does. It does. I like telling people that they each need to have a ME account, ME account, a money expansion account for themselves, right? We all need to have something allocated. It's I think whether it's money or things that we like to have, we need to have something for our own. And when we use money as a tool, right, instead of a conversation, a tool to pivot against each other, that's when things go awry, right? Yes. And you always should be in a position where you have advocated for yourself your whole life, right? And I'm going to say, when we talk about the advocacy, I mean, really, what would be simple steps or simple points of self-advocacy? Because, like, for me, I think we're talking about one of them: having your own account, learning.
We always want to talk about, especially you're talking about, your son got married. So we always want to make it like everything is wonderful, and there's never going to be anything that goes wrong. Well, right. You read the chapter in my book about the marriage and the divorce and all of that. Well, you have to have a plan, because now if they're in control of everything, how are you, if something goes wrong, going to have a plan? Everything costs money. My attorney costs money. Everything costs money. Where was I going to find money for that?
Yeah.
And I hear stories all the time. So,
and I think plans can be fun. I mean, I call plans, like, they could be prosperity spending plans. And I like using the acronym of purposely leveraged action. You can use the word needed or now. like you're going to act on it now, or it's needed like for the future. And just create these shifts of leveraging, which also is like a lot of what we're talking about is really having the mindset around this, having the community to help us. So for women that maybe might be struggling, that feel alone or isolated, what advice or what do you share with them?
Well, of course, it's key if you surround yourself with amazing people that can support you and support your mindset, because really, if you're isolated, you really don't know what's going on. So really to have amazing people around you is very important. For me, I was alone, and I just made sure that I stayed in the Word of God to keep my mindset and my strength and positive. Positive affirmations and things like that for me. And again, if you're young, when I was going to Wall Street, I had this mindset and this vision for my life. I had a vision. So what's your vision? Even getting through the difficult times that I was talking about, I had a vision of what it's going to look like when I pushed through and got to the other side. I knew what the other side was going to not exactly look like, but I envisioned it. So even though everybody told me you'll never, I envisioned myself being a broker on Wall Street. And I didn't necessarily envision the wealth that was coming in, and I didn't have an advisor to tell me to save for this. I did have a sister who goes, save every penny. And I'm like, life is too short. I'm in my 20s. I'm going to have, a nice time. So
Exactly. Enjoy yourself.
yes.
Well, what I'm going to do is we're going to take a quick break, and I'm going to ask some more questions. I want to hear a little bit more about that, how young you were when you were on Wall Street, and, a little bit more about what it was like inside. And so we're going to hear a word from our sponsor, which is Dr. Lois Frankel. And her book is, actually an Audible that's called Nice Girls Don't Speak Up or Stand Out. It's how to get your voice heard. So really apropos for what we're going in and learning a little bit about the right words, maybe in a work environment. So here is a word from our sponsor. That's awesome. So one of the things I love is it's about these books. It's kind of what we're feeding ourselves. We're feeding our minds. So when we talk about where we're hanging out, right, it could be that village of people, but it is also words that we're putting in our own minds, and what's hanging out in between this 6-inch space here that I do tease a lot of times. Sometimes that if we could charge the rent to the negative voices that are occupying space, we would probably all be millionaires at this point in time. And, when I think about finances, it's still a male-dominated industry to the tune of about 90%. I'm not saying that's good or bad. It just still is, which is kind of interesting. But yet now I find, and what I'm encouraging is women who really do have these conversations and do speak about it. So what was it like for you, like on the inside, and especially at the time? You were pretty young when you were there. So how old were you, if you don't mind me asking?
I was 18. I was
Wow.
18. And I got hired because the president of the company, which I write about in the book, his name was Vinny, and he said, he just looked at my resume and just said, Maria Mastrodicasa, you're hired. I was like, and I really wanted the job, but I still questioned him. I said, well, you didn't even read the resume. He goes, you're Italian, we're Italian. You have to put up with locker room talk, be here every day, be here on time. And I knew that I could be there every day, and I knew I could be on time. I thought, wow, this is easy. And I was very, very young to be in that environment. I saw 2 other women there when I walked on the floor. And there was a couple of other women, secretaries and things like that. But it was very, very few women. And then, you know, there was another side, but there were still very, very few women. And they said, it's a man's world. Lucky you were invited.
Oh, wow. That's pretty amazing. I think a lot of hairs are standing up right now in people's head. But, you know, it was the era, it was that time frame. I think that things are changing and making it a lot simpler or easier. There's an ease to women getting into financials and learning more. So I have a quick question about I'm dying to know what you're currently working on at this point, or what's new in your world, or where you're speaking.
Well, today I was on with a global company there. It's an amazing company, and it's so interesting. So they called me, they want me to do a speaking engagement for them on self-advocacy for the company, and it's global. And amazingly, I met the owner of the company in Barcelona a couple of years ago at one of their events. And I thought, oh, how interesting. But yeah, they found me on LinkedIn. And so I'm doing speaking engagements. I'm doing one-on-one self-advocacy coaching so that until you learn how to advocate for yourself, you know, I just coach you through that. Speaking out, speaking your voice in whatever area you're having a gap. It could be, you know, in business. It could be in your family dynamic. You know, how do you speak up and speak out? And, you know, health and wellness. I do a Wellness Wednesday, you know, so I'm really because to me, health is what, you know, health is wealth, especially in this, what we're all going through now, keeping your immune system up, keeping healthy, you know, so, and I had already written the book, so I don't really, you know, mention the book, but yes, an author. And so now I'm turning the book into a workbook for colleges.
Awesome. Well, this is really great. Yeah. I think prevention, starting out and having these conversations where it's just a natural, normal part of our lives is, like you said, it's that conversation. Because I'm going to say, who told us what conversation to have with, you know, the guys that we meet that we want to marry, or, you know, partners that we want to have? I don't think that I've ever heard about that discussion, you know, ever.
Well, I think you and I come from like the same kind of background and upbringing, and many women, you know, we grow up to be these polite young ladies, and yes, you know, whether you have some religion in your background that adds to it, you have the dogma. And so here you are, this nice girl, and no one's really telling you. That's what this workbook is about, is did you ever not feel safe? I'm preparing them if they go into the workforce, what to look for, different areas, because the key thing is to feel safe. Because when you feel safe, you can be yourself, you can express yourself, you feel free to talk. And so that's so very important. And I want to make sure that I get that out, because we're so polite that we hold everything in because we think we're not supposed to say anything. And even young children, when they're in danger, you know, it's okay if you're in the grocery store, someone's trying to grab you, scream, yell, make a scene. You know, we have to, there's a difference between being polite and trying to save yourself in a difficult situation. So
I think you were just answering one of the questions that I was going to ask, is like, what are the myths that we need to bust around this about self-advocacy? What other, I'm going to say, delusions or things that are clouding what is that reality that women can actually be self-advocates that you've experienced or worked with?
Well, I think when something happens, sometimes we tend to blame ourselves. We have a lot of shame around it. You know, again, I can talk about, you know, there's shame around domestic violence. There's shame for the person, because you're like, first of all, you can't believe it's happening. Here I was, this big, this broker on Wall Street, you think that I'm tough, and then something's happening to you. You really don't understand. So, and you have shame around it. And it also happens to men, and there's even more shame for them because, big tough guy, and that's happening to them. And so the same in the workforce. You want to speak up, you want to speak out. Oh, should I ask for a raise? Shouldn't I ask for a raise? Am I worthy enough? Do I bring value? So you have to know that you bring value. What is your value? And you get to have that discussion, because you should be making what your male counterpart is making if you're doing the same position.
Yeah.
And you're working probably harder. You should be paid equally, if not more.
Wow. So what tips can you leave we're almost, we're a little over the halfway mark. So what tips, I want to make sure we get those in, would you recommend? Maybe something that's daily tips or practices that the women can do to move themselves towards, I'm going to say, strengthening that self-advocacy muscle.
Well, I think, the strength comes from a good practice, good habits, good morning rituals, positive affirmations. Do you meditate? Do you work out? These young girls that I had a conversation with from college, they said, well, how do you motivate yourself? How do you have so much confidence? And let's face it. I don't always have confidence. I don't always feel secure. And it's when I know that I wake up and I have my morning routine and I get to eat healthy and I work out. It makes me feel good from the inside out. And then I stand differently. I feel differently. And I have more clarity, and I feel like I speak clearer. And that's really important. That builds confidence. When you get up and you do, it could be yoga, it could be Qigong, it could be anything, but you do something for yourself, it helps you to feel better. And, I believe that having a clear mind is key. Yes. Make sure that we're saying good things to ourselves.
Yes, I agree. So in saying good things to ourselves, do you have a mantra that you go by every day?
Yes, my mantra is, I am blessed to be a blessing.
Oh, I love that one. That's beautiful. Yeah. I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you happen to have a money mantra or something tied to that? Or is it the blessings?
Well, I say money flows to me, and now I know not to say through me because we were talking. So money flows to me, and I have to get a new mantra, because yes, I feel like I always want to have a flow because I am a giver by nature, and so I like it to come to me, and I like to also give generously, but I have to be mindful.
I think that you can, we can. So you're blessed to be a blessing, and money flows to you. So money flows to me, and with it, you are blessed. You are blessed and a blessing to others. So we could just combine it like that. I mean, this is, I just like having fun conversations because, it is, how do we feel good about money? How can we feel good about money? So you just pointed it out is, sometimes we may get to this where we have our mantra or we have a way of thinking, and then we meet someone or we're in a group. I mean, we're constantly evolving and learning. I think I feel like right now I'm
learning a lot.
I'm in my biggest stretches of growth, and I'm learning from amazing people and amazing groups. And I think one of the things that I've been thinking about lately is being the small fish in the big pond. The one where I'm having to, well, it used to be I was in a class and I would be constantly raising my hand, right? And asking the questions. Who cares what anybody thinks? Because you know what? The smartest person in the room is the person that gets the answer to the question that they have, because now they got smarter, right? So now it's, anytime I hear something new, we're in this world of Zoom and networks, I'm Googling, oh my God, that person said something new. And what is that?
I write down words all the time that I hear, the groups that we're in, and I write down words and I go, wow, that's just amazing. I never heard that one before, or in that way. And so I find it amazing. But you say being a little fish in a big pond. And I always look at it when I'm working out. I always like to be next to people who are even more advanced than I am, because that gives me, something to strive for, and I think of it as building your muscle, because it takes consistency. It takes, it doesn't happen overnight. And it's like making a plan for your future. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to have a plan in place. And for me, it's a great feeling to have that. It's a great feeling to know that you can take care of yourself into your, I always say I'm going to live past 100 because I know my family history.
I love it. There's a book. I'm like looking on my shelf. I've decided to live to age 120. Happy, healthy, and I say sane.
Sane, yes. Well, because you want to have all your senses.
You want to be happy, you want to be healthy, and you want to be sane. And I'm going to say that probably goes for our everyday life, right? In every moment. I think we talk about presence, right? And being present a lot, you and I, in our conversations. And if we could just be present and to recognize, I think some of the words that are standing out for me that you said were having grace where we are for ourselves. Being open to receiving the blessings so that we can spread blessings is so super impactful. And I think what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to put your LinkedIn, so people, if they want to check out, you mentioned your LinkedIn, so
yes.
The LinkedIn is here so they can reach you. I know you also have your website, Mastrodicasa.com. And then they also can check you out, or email you directly at goaskmaria.com.
Correct.
And so that this way there's many ways.
They can look me up on, Facebook and Instagram, but mostly Facebook. I do a lot of lives there. And, it's always nice to have people jump in for the conversation.
Well, and I know your last name, being that you're a fellow paisana, Mastrodicasa means master of the house. Or master of your home. And I think that this is home right here. If we can be masters of ourselves and our minds with the help of others, then we really get to move forward in our lives and really make steps that are transforming leaps and bounds every day.
Yes, because when we look within ourselves, which, I just had a huge, epiphany, because I have to look at myself. I mean, it's easy to look at others. What is it in me? And what can I change in me? And what could I take a stand for? And so I took a huge stand for myself. What will happen? I don't know, but you get to take a stand for yourself and own your mistakes. I mean, that was the first thing I learned when I walked on the trading floor. They said, if you mess up, they didn't say it that way, but they said, if you mess up, stand up and say it fast, because there's 32 seconds to get off a trade. If you make a mistake, you need to get it corrected right away.
Wow, what a practice. So I'm going to say, when we make mistakes, a couple things as a leader in self-advocacy, and what we're doing is that, what I'm hearing is, we are going to have the mistakes, but if there's lessons learned, then it's really not a mistake. It's just a growth pattern that you're starting to accelerate and achieving, so that you can achieve and honestly continue to grow. Because I think leaders, like you said, that's a great leadership skill, is to be able to speak out what has happened so that you can then move forward. And we're all
speak it out. First of all, take ownership of it. Speak it out, because when you see that error, that mistake, it's going to keep happening if you don't see it. So once you see it, take a stand and say it, so that you can, own it and get past it.
So it's kind of
you don't want it to come back again. I don't want my mistakes.
I'm going to be funny because I'm like thinking of food all of a sudden, and I'm like, it's like seeing the sandwich that was made for you, and then you want to take a bite of it, but you're not going to take a bite of it. But if you don't somebody else is. And it's not just to jump in because somebody else is, but it's like, it's that missed opportunity. Like you didn't get to have that favorite sandwich of yours or what have you. And I know it might seem like a weird analogy, but your favorite thing, but sometimes that's the way my brain just works is, own it, go get it, embrace it, enjoy it.
Own it. And yes.
Yes, I
Get to
love
speak
that.
up, and you get to do it. I mean, you got to be all in. You have to be all in. And we talk about being present, but when you're present and you're showing up, how are you showing up?
Exactly.
So.
Well, I really appreciate you showing up today. I am going to share a couple of awesome events that are coming up. A couple weeks ago, we saw, let's see how I work this. I'm still learning our technology, but we had our Wine Women Wealth speaker and Denise Arand. So if you're looking for events, you can actually go to our Mama Rita Money site and join us for one of these events. And so the site is there. Our next event, so there's several events of those, but this coming weekend. So Seroptimus, actually, I'm going to see how I can share for a moment. Seroptimus, which is a philanthropic group, because I know you do a lot of philanthropic work too. It's so important to spread blessings in the world. Seroptimus is women that are giving back and teaching other women and young women. This coming weekend, I get to be a speaker and I get to educate young women between the ages of 12 and 24. So if you know any, for a free raise your financial intelligence workshop. So that is right here in between us so that they can achieve their dreams. The younger we start, I'm going to say the mistakes that we make when we're younger can then just kind of be learning lessons that we grow on. I'm going to say I was blessed with being able to let my sons go through programs with me so that now when we're talking about things, it's just conversation. And then I get to sit back and relish in the words that they're saying and the thoughts, and they probably don't even know it because they just heard it. And it wasn't something, I'm going to say for me, it was something experimental with my children to see what it would be like in the future. But literally 10 years later, having them gone through programs and you can see how it's morphed and shaped them in different ways so that they can really grow and flourish. For me, it's all about flourishing. Yes. There is a big event coming up this coming weekend, and that is, it's called That's Entertainment. And there is a foundation called the Bloom Again Foundation. I will leave that up at the end. If you can look up bloomagain.org, what it does is it helps low-income women with health equity. What does that mean, right? That means these women are usually single moms, and when they have a major life event, they need that money because otherwise they and their children can be homeless. But what we have done is we've created a specific way for that money to go directly to a landlord for rent, to their car, their car payments for transportation. So if they're needing chemo treatment, then they will get that chemo treatment. So we're going to have a fun event. It's here in the middle, but I'll leave it at the end. I'll show it. It's this coming Sunday from 2 to 4. Dr. Lois Frankel, our speaker from the last time, got to show up and share about speaking up and standing out. And we're going to have more fun. There's going to be a DJ. It's going to be a blast. And we hope that you can all join us or at least share the message because we want to keep families intact. And it has a ripple effect on their children as well. So I'm looking forward to more of that. And then definitely, please pick up, let's see if I can get my lighting right here, a book of Maria Mastrodicassa's You'll Never. It is a read that you will not want to put down, and it goes fairly quick. And then really, I had a page where I just took and I highlighted the nuggets so that I had literally a go-to sheet for what I learned and how I want to implement them in my life. And then you just do it one lesson learned at a time, because I really believe that leaders help us not go through landmines, right? So Maria's gotten to the other side. I don't want to say completely unscathed, but really maybe um, kind of like aged like fine wine, to have the lessons to share, to be that better vintage through story, right? Through experience, so that maybe you or one other woman in your life doesn't have to.
Yes.
So, Maria, we're gonna, last tidbit. What would you tell your 22-year-old self, right? If you could go back, what would be the one thing that you would tell that young gal starting off into the world?
I would tell her at 22, you've accomplished a lot already, and you should be very proud.
Mm.
And as you move forward and there's bumps in the road, climb over them, go through them, because you're going to be stronger for it and you're going to make an impact in the world.
Oh my God, that was so beautiful. That moved me, because that's right. Be proud and you will be an impact. Reach out to Maria, reach out to me. And with that, I will close us out,
Thank
and
you
I
so much
wish
for having
you
me.
abundant blessings. Thank you for being here. Remember, it's always a great time to feel great about money. Join us in 2 weeks. We'll be listening to Tina Donnelly, who's CFO of Five Rings Financial. We'll see how she went from the projects to abundant prosperity. You are
Love.
not going to want to miss that one. So I love you all. Abundant blessings. Remember, we flourish together. We're here as a community together. All right. Love you and thank you. And with that, we wish you, I'm going to say, a good night.
Wow, that was awesome.